Before Maria could respond further to Derek, the restaurant door opened behind them. A family of 4 walked in, a man in a crisp business suit, a woman in a floral dress, and 2 children in matching outfits without a wrinkle in sight. The contrast between them and Maria and Sophia couldn't have been more obvious. Derek's face transformed instantly. His frown dissolved into a welcoming smile as he stepped around Maria and Sophia, as if they were merely furniture. "Ah, the Thompsons. Wonderful to see you again. Your usual table by the window is ready." Sophia watched with wide eyes as Derek grabbed 4 shiny menus and gestured grandly toward the best spot in the restaurant, a corner table bathed in sunlight with a view of the small garden outside. The family followed him, the mother glancing back briefly at Maria and Sophia with an expression that might have been sympathy or embarrassment. She quickly looked away when Maria met her eyes. The restaurant had fallen into an uncomfortable silence. Maria could feel stares from the other diners burning into her back. A couple whispered to each other behind their menus. An older man cleared his throat loudly. "Look, I don't want to cause any trouble," Maria said quietly to Derek when he returned to his podium. She placed a protective hand on Sophia's shoulder. "We can just go somewhere else." But Derek wasn't finished. He straightened his tie and spoke again, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Perhaps McDonald's would be more appropriate for your situation," he said with a thin smile. "We can't have dirty children disturbing our other guests. Bellini's is trying to create a certain atmosphere now." The words hung in the air like a slap. Sophia, who had been confused before, now understood perfectly what was happening. Her small shoulders slumped and her hand tightened in Maria's. "Mama," she whispered, her voice wobbly. "Why does he think I'm bad?" Maria knelt down to her daughter's level, ignoring Derek and the staring patrons. "You are not bad, Sophia, not at all. Some people just don't understand what's really important." From the corner of her eye, Maria noticed a woman at a nearby table nodding in apparent agreement with Derek's words. Another customer awkwardly studied his water glass. No one spoke up. Maria stood, trying to maintain her dignity. "Let's go, sweetheart." They turned to leave, but Derek couldn't resist one final comment. "In the future, please consider that other people shouldn't have to look at that while they're trying to enjoy their meals." A few diners had the decency to look uncomfortable. One elderly man frowned deeply at Derek but remained silent. A woman at the bar shook her head slightly but continued sipping her drink. Outside on the sidewalk, the summer heat hit them like a wave. Maria took a deep breath, trying to calm the anger and hurt bubbling inside her. She had faced plenty of judgment as a single mother working multiple jobs, but seeing it directed at her innocent child cut deeper than anything before. Sophia's face crumpled as soon as they were alone. "Why wouldn't he let us eat there? Is it because we're poor?" The question broke Maria's heart. She guided Sophia to a bench a little way down the street, away from the restaurant windows. "No, honey. Some people judge others by how they look on the outside. That man saw our dirty clothes and made wrong assumptions about us." Sophia wiped her nose with the back of her hand, leaving another dirt smudge on her face. "But we were dirty. For a good reason. We were helping people." "Exactly," Maria said, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's face. "And I'm so proud of you for that. Sometimes people can only see what's on the surface. They miss what's really important. What's in here?" She tapped Sophia's chest gently. Sophia thought about this for a moment. His restaurant looked pretty, but he wasn't pretty inside. Despite everything, Maria couldn't help but smile. "That's very wise, sweetheart." A businessman walked past them into Bellini's, not giving them a second glance. Through the window, Maria could see Derek greeting him warmly, pulling out a chair with a flourish. The unfairness of it all made her throat tight. "Are we still going to eat somewhere special?" Sophia asked in a small voice. "I'm still really hungry." Maria checked her wallet again. The money she had saved for their special meal was still there. She wouldn't let Derek ruin their rare day together completely. "Absolutely, and I know just the place." 2 blocks away was a small family-owned diner called Gina's. Maria had passed it many times but never gone in. The cheerful yellow awning and window boxes full of flowers had always seemed inviting. A chalkboard sign outside advertised real food for real people. When they walked in, the difference from Bellini's was immediate. The tables didn't match, the floor was slightly worn, and instead of white tablecloths, each table had a vase with a single fresh flower. The walls were covered with local children's artwork and community flyers. A woman in her 60s looked up from behind the counter and smiled at them. "Sit anywhere you like, dears. I'll be right with you." Sophia hesitantly chose a table by the window, looking around as if expecting someone to tell them to leave. When the woman, Gina herself, as they soon learned, came to take their order, she didn't even blink at their appearance. "Been working hard somewhere?" she asked kindly, noting their dirty clothes. "At the community garden," Sophia answered cautiously. "We were growing food for people who don't have enough." Gina's face lit up. "Well, isn't that wonderful? My brother gets vegetables from that food bank. You two are doing important work." She patted Sophia's shoulder. "I think that deserves a free dessert, don't you?" For the first time since leaving Bellini's, Sophia smiled. Maria felt some of the tension leave her body as they ordered sandwiches and lemonade. The food, when it came, was delicious and plentiful. True to her word, Gina brought them each a slice of homemade apple pie with ice cream. As they ate, Maria watched her daughter gradually return to her usual cheerful self. But something had changed. The innocent joy of their morning had been tarnished. Sophia's eyes occasionally darted to the door when new customers entered, as if bracing herself for rejection. Each time someone walked past their table, she pulled her feet in closer, trying to be smaller, less noticeable. It broke Maria's heart to see. No child should learn to make themselves invisible. "That man was wrong to treat us that way," Maria said suddenly, putting down her fork. "What he did wasn't just rude. It was wrong." Sophia looked up, surprised by her mother's tone. "Sometimes," Maria continued, choosing her words carefully, "when people treat us badly, we need to speak up, not just for ourselves, but so they don't do the same thing to others." "But what can we do?" Sophia asked. "He's a grown-up with a fancy restaurant." Maria didn't have an answer. They were just one small family, and people like Derek seemed to hold all the power. What could they possibly do against that kind of casual cruelty? Little did they know someone was already planning to answer that question for them. The morning sun peeked through the clouds as Maria Gonzalez checked her watch. For once, she wasn't rushing between her job at the hospital and her weekend work at the convenience store. Today was special, a rare Tuesday off that matched her daughter Sophia's school holiday. Maria had promised this day to her daughter for weeks. "Mama, look." 8-year-old Sophia held up a carrot she had just pulled from the ground, her small fingers caked with rich brown soil. "It looks like the one from the storybook." They had spent the entire morning at the Pine Street Community Garden, where local families grew vegetables for the neighborhood food bank. Maria had signed them up as volunteers months ago, thinking it would teach Sophia about giving back. What she hadn't expected was how much joy her daughter would find in the simple act of digging in the earth. "That's perfect, sweetheart," Maria said, gently taking the carrot and placing it in their collection basket. She wiped her brow, leaving a streak of dirt across her forehead. Around them, other volunteers chatted and worked, creating a peaceful rhythm of community effort. By noon, Sophia's blue t-shirt bore the evidence of her enthusiastic gardening. Soil, smudges, grass stains, and the occasional splash from the water can. Her sneakers, once white, had turned a mottled brown, but her eyes sparkled with pride as the garden coordinator thanked everyone for their help. "You two were amazing today," said Mrs. Chen, the elderly woman who organized the garden. "First-timers usually don't last this long in the summer heat," Sophia beamed. "We grew food for people who need it. Mama says that's important." Maria ruffled her daughter's tangled hair. Usually she would have insisted Sophia clean up immediately, but today felt different. There was something beautiful about the honest dirt of hard work, about her daughter understanding what it meant to help others. "We sure did," Maria replied. Her stomach growled suddenly, loud enough for Sophia to hear and giggle. "Mama's tummy is talking." The morning's physical work had left them both hungry. Maria checked her wallet. The extra shift she'd picked up last week meant they could afford a small treat. How about we go somewhere nice for lunch? Maria suggested. To celebrate our hard work? Sophia's eyes widened. Like a fancy restaurant? With real napkins? Their meals out were usually limited to the fast food place near the hospital where Maria could use her employee discount. The idea of sitting down somewhere nice felt extravagant, special. Yes, like a real restaurant. Maria smiled. I passed by this place called Bellini's the other day. They had pictures of pasta in the window that looked delicious. After loading their gardening tools into Maria's old sedan, they drove across town. Bellini's was located in a part of the city Maria rarely visited, a little too expensive for her budget. But today was about making memories with her daughter. Do I look pretty, Mama? Sophia asked as they parked, suddenly self-conscious about her appearance. Maria looked at her daughter, dirt-stained clothes, messy hair with a leaf stuck in it, and that bright, innocent smile that made everything worthwhile. You look beautiful, Maria said truthfully, like a real gardener who just helped feed hungry people. That's something to be proud of. Sophia nodded, satisfied with this explanation, and hopped out of the car. She reached for her mother's hand as they approached the restaurant, a habit she was starting to outgrow but still kept for special occasions. The exterior of Bellini's looked welcoming enough. Warm lights glowed from inside despite the early afternoon hour, and the rich smell of garlic and tomato sauce wafted through the door each time someone entered or left. A small sign in the window read, "Under New Management," in fancy lettering. It smells so good, Sophia whispered excitedly, squeezing her mother's hand. As they stepped inside, Maria noticed how the restaurant was only about half full. Plenty of empty tables lined the walls, each covered with crisp white tablecloths. A small water feature trickled in one corner, creating a gentle background noise. It was nicer than she had expected, but not overly formal. The host, a tall man with slicked-back hair and a name tag reading Derek Wells, stood behind a polished wooden podium. He was tapping something into a tablet when they approached and didn't look up immediately. Table for two, please, Maria said politely. When Derek finally looked up, his expression changed so quickly that Maria almost thought she had imagined it. His eyes moved from her face down to her dirt-smudged jeans, then over to Sophia, taking in every stain and smudge on the child's clothing. His lips pressed into a thin line before he spoke. I'm sorry, but do you have a reservation? Maria glanced around at the many empty tables. No, we don't, but it looks like you have space? Derek cleared his throat, standing straighter. We're actually quite busy with upcoming reservations. And... He paused, his eyes once again moving to Sophia's dirty clothes. We do maintain certain standards at Bellini's now. The new management has been working hard to elevate the dining experience. Sophia, not fully understanding his words but sensing his tone, moved closer to her mother. Maria felt a flutter of unease, but pushed past it. We've been volunteering at the community garden, she explained, helping grow vegetables for the food bank. We came straight here because we were hungry after all that work. We'd be happy with any table, even in the back. The host's expression didn't soften. Instead, he raised his voice slightly, ensuring it carried to nearby tables. I'm afraid we simply cannot seat guests who don't meet certain standards of cleanliness. It's a matter of respect for our other patrons. Heads turned. A couple at a nearby table exchanged glances. An older woman frowned, though Maria couldn't tell if it was directed at them or at Derek's comment. Sophia tugged at her mother's hand. Mama, she whispered, confusion and the beginning of tears evident in her voice. Did I do something wrong? That simple question broke Maria's heart. She watched as her daughter's earlier pride crumbled into shame, all because of one man's judgment of their appearance. No, baby, Maria said, loud enough for others to hear. You did nothing wrong at all. Back at Bellini's, most diners had already forgotten the incident with the dirty little girl and her mother. Conversations resumed, wine glasses clinked, and the restaurant settled back into its routine. All except for one table. Eleanor Reeves sat alone in the corner, her pasta barely touched. At 56, she commanded attention without trying. Her silver-streaked dark hair pulled back in a neat bun, reading glasses perched on her nose, and a tailored navy suit that spoke of quiet authority. For 30 years, she had built her reputation as one of the city's most formidable attorneys, specializing in discrimination cases. And she had seen everything. Eleanor took another sip of water, her appetite gone. She had watched the entire exchange between Derek and the mother-daughter pair, noting every detail with professional precision. The way he had raised his voice deliberately, the public humiliation, the mother's dignified retreat, and most of all, the confusion and hurt in the little girl's eyes. In her decades of legal practice, Eleanor had handled cases in federal court, faced down corporate giants, and changed housing laws. But sometimes it was the small everyday cruelties that stirred her the most. She signaled for her check. As she waited, she pulled out her phone and made a few quick notes about what she had witnessed, including the exact time and the name on the host's badge. When Derek approached with her bill, Eleanor smiled pleasantly. "Lovely meal," she lied. "I'm curious, who owns Bellini's now? I understand there's new management." Derek straightened proudly. "Mr. Michael Bellini still owns it, but I've been brought on as the new assistant manager to elevate the establishment's profile. We're implementing higher standards." He glanced meaningfully toward the door where Maria and Sophia had exited. "I see. And those standards include refusing service to people who've been doing volunteer work?" Eleanor kept her tone conversational. Derek's smile faltered slightly. "We have an image to maintain. Surely you understand that some guests might be uncomfortable dining next to," he gestured vaguely, "next to an 8-year-old child with dirt on her clothes. A child who spent her morning helping grow food for hungry people." Eleanor's voice remained calm, but her eyes had hardened. "May I have Mr. Bellini's business card, please?" "Of course," Derek replied, suddenly less certain. "Are you interested in booking a private event?" Eleanor merely smiled. "Something like that." After paying her bill, Eleanor sat in her car and called her sister Beth. "Hey, you still work at County General, right?" she asked when Beth answered. "Going on 15 years now." "Why?" "Do you know a janitor there named Maria? Hispanic woman, probably in her 30s, has a young daughter named Sophia." Beth laughed. "You know how many people work at this hospital? Must be at least 5 Marias on the cleaning staff alone." Eleanor sighed. "This Maria works 2 jobs. Her daughter is about 8 with dark curly hair. They volunteer at a community garden." "Wait, you might mean Maria Gonzalez," Beth said. "She works nights cleaning the East Wing and weekends at some convenience store. Sweetest woman, always has pictures of her daughter. Why are you asking about her?" Eleanor briefly explained what she had witnessed at Bellini's. "That's horrible," Beth said. "Maria is one of the hardest working people I know. She picks up every extra shift possible to provide for Sophia. Can you find out which community garden they volunteer at? I'd like to talk to her." "Eleanor," Beth's voice held a warning note. "What are you planning?" "Nothing dramatic," Eleanor replied, starting her car. "Just a conversation." 3 hours later, after numerous phone calls and a visit to the Pine Street Community Gardens Facebook page, Eleanor stood outside Maria's apartment building. It was a far cry from Eleanor's downtown condo. The paint was peeling, the security door had a broken lock, and the small patch of grass out front was more weeds than lawn. But the building was clean, and someone had placed pots of bright marigolds by the entrance. Eleanor checked the apartment number from the information she'd gathered and headed up to the 3rd floor. She knocked gently on door 3C. After a moment, the door opened a few inches, secured by a chain. Maria's tired eyes peered through the gap, widening in confusion when she saw a stranger in a business suit. "Mrs. Gonzalez? My name is Eleanor Reeves. I was at Bellini's today when you and your daughter were denied service." Maria's expression closed off immediately. "I don't want any trouble. We're fine." She began to shut the door, but Eleanor spoke. Quickly, "I'm an attorney. What happened to you and Sophia today wasn't just wrong, it was potentially illegal." The door paused. "I'm not trying to sell you anything," Eleanor added. "I'd just like to talk. 5 minutes." After a moment's hesitation, Maria unhooked the chain and opened the door. The apartment beyond was small but spotlessly clean. Textbooks, were stacked on the kitchen table next to a half-completed homework assignment. A hand-drawn picture of flowers was taped to the refrigerator, signed in wobbly letters. Sophia G. She's asleep, Maria explained, nodding toward a closed door off the living room. She was very upset after what happened. Her voice was guarded, wary. I can imagine, Eleanor said. May I sit? Maria gestured to a worn but clean sofa. I don't understand why you're here, Ms. Reeves. Eleanor, please. She sat, placing her business card on the coffee table. I'm a partner at Reeves and Morgan. Law. For 30 years I've specialized in discrimination cases. Maria didn't touch the card. We weren't discriminated against. We were dirty. The words held a trace of the shame Derek had intended to inflict. You were refused service in a public establishment because of your appearance after participating in community service, Eleanor corrected firmly. And more importantly, a grown man deliberately humiliated a child in public. That's not just poor customer service. That's potentially actionable. Actionable? Maria repeated, the legal term unfamiliar. Something we could take legal action against, Eleanor explained. But I'm not here to push you into a lawsuit. I'm here because I couldn't stop thinking about your daughter's face when that man spoke to you both so cruelly. For the first time, Maria's expression softened. Sophia asked me what she did wrong, she said quietly. She was so proud of our work at the garden. Now she thinks she should be ashamed of it. Eleanor nodded. That's exactly why I'm here. No child should learn that helping others makes them less worthy of respect. She paused. My sister Beth works at County General. She speaks very highly of you. You know Beth? From the night shift? Maria's surprise was evident. She always brings cookies for the cleaning staff. Eleanor smiled. That sounds like Beth, always feeding everyone. The connection seemed to ease Maria's suspicions somewhat. She finally picked up Eleanor's business, card studying it. What exactly are you suggesting, Ms. Reeves? First, I want to be clear. This would be pro bono. That means free of charge, Eleanor explained. What I'm suggesting is a lesson in consequences. For Derek, for Bellini's, and most importantly for Sophia. A lesson? Eleanor leaned forward slightly. What message did Sophia learn today? That she should be ashamed of honest work? That people with more money matter more than people who help others? That's not a lesson any child should learn. Maria was quiet for a long moment, thinking. What kind of lesson did you have in mind? Nothing excessive, Eleanor assured her. Just enough to make a point. A point that might help Sophia understand that standing up for yourself matters. That justice isn't just for people with expensive clothes and powerful jobs. Maria glanced toward the bedroom where her daughter slept. I work 2 jobs to keep this roof over our heads. I can't afford to make enemies or get caught up in some legal battle. I understand, Eleanor said. But consider this. What if the next family Derek humiliates doesn't have someone like me watching? What if the next child believes they deserve that kind of treatment? The question hung in the air between them. Maria brushed a strand of hair from her face, revealing the streak of garden dirt she hadn't had time to wash away. What exactly would we have to do? She finally asked. Eleanor smiled. Just show up, and wear exactly the same clothes you had on today. The next morning dawned bright and clear. Sophia woke up to find her mother already in the kitchen making pancakes, a rare treat usually reserved for birthdays and special occasions. Are we celebrating something? Sophia asked, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Maria smiled. Sort of. We're going on a little adventure today. Sophia tilted her head curiously. What kind of adventure? A standing up for yourself adventure, Maria replied, flipping a pancake with newfound confidence. Remember the nice lady I told you about last night? Ms. Eleanor? Sophia nodded. After Eleanor had left their apartment the previous evening, Maria had carefully explained to her daughter that sometimes when people are treated unfairly, they can do something about it. Is she coming with us on the adventure? Sophia asked, reaching for the maple syrup. Yes, and a few of her friends too. But first, Maria pointed to the chair where she had laid out clothes. You need to wear these. Sophia looked at the pile in confusion. But those are my dirty clothes from yesterday. You always say I need clean clothes every day. Today is different, Maria explained. Today we want people to see exactly who we are. Hard-working gardeners who aren't ashamed of a little dirt. While Sophia ate breakfast, Maria called the convenience store where she worked weekends and explained she'd be an hour late for her shift. Her manager, understanding the situation after Maria's brief explanation, told her to take the whole day if needed. Those fancy restaurant types need to learn some manners, he'd said gruffly. You show 'em, Maria. At precisely 11:30, Maria and Sophia stood outside their apartment building. The garden dirt on their clothes had dried overnight, making them look even more worn and stained than the day before. Sophia had insisted on bringing her small gardening gloves, which hung from her back pocket. A sleek black car pulled up to the curb. Eleanor stepped out, dressed in another impeccable suit. This one charcoal gray with a red silk scarf that somehow made her look even more formidable. Good morning, she greeted them warmly. Ready for our meeting? Sophia eyed the luxury car with wide eyes. Are we going in that? Eleanor smiled. We certainly are, and we have 2 more stops to make before our main appointment. As they drove through the city, Eleanor explained their plan in simple terms that Sophia could understand. We're going to give Mr. Derek and the restaurant owner a chance to do the right thing, she said. Sometimes people make mistakes because they're thinking about the wrong things, like how much money they can make instead of how to treat people with respect. And if they don't do the right thing? Sophia asked. Eleanor's eyes met Maria's in the rearview mirror. Then we have options. Their first stop was a tall office building downtown. Eleanor led them inside to a conference room where 2 people were waiting, a young man with thick glasses and a middle-aged woman whose stern expression softened when she saw Sophia. Maria, Sophia, these are my colleagues Tom and Diane, Eleanor introduced them. They're attorneys at my firm who specialize in civil rights cases. Tom shook Maria's hand. Eleanor briefed us last night. What happened to you was textbook public. Accommodation discrimination. Diane knelt to Sophia's level. I have a daughter just a bit older than you. She thought what happened was very unfair. Sophia nodded solemnly. It made me feel really small. Well, Diane said, standing up. Today, we're going to help you feel big again. They spent 20 minutes discussing their approach. Tom took notes while Eleanor explained various legal terms in simple language so both Maria and Sophia could understand. Remember, Eleanor told Sophia, you don't need to say anything if you don't want to. Just being there is enough. Their next stop was the courthouse where they picked up the final member of their team, Judge Raymond Wilson, retired after 30 years on the bench and an old friend of Eleanor's. Purely as an observer, the white-haired judge clarified as he settled his considerable frame into the car. But sometimes observation from the right person can be very effective. Sophia was impressed by the judge's deep voice and kind eyes. He showed her his old courthouse ID card and told her a funny story about a time when a lost puppy had wandered into his courtroom, causing chaos during an important trial. By the time they pulled up in front of Bellini's, Sophia's nervousness had been replaced with curiosity. The restaurant was busy with the lunch crowd, professionals in business attire, ladies meeting for social lunches, and a few tourists looking at travel guides between bites. Eleanor checked her watch. Perfect timing, 12:15, peak lunch hour. She looked at Sophia. Ready? Sophia took her mother's hand and nodded. The group made quite a sight as they walked toward the entrance. A small girl and her mother in dirt-stained clothes, flanked by 3 impeccably dressed attorneys and a distinguished former judge. Heads turned as they passed the outdoor seating area. Derek was at his podium again, checking reservations on his tablet. He didn't look up when the door opened, just as he hadn't the day before. Welcome to Bellini's, he said automatically. Do you have a... The words died in his throat as he recognized Maria and Sophia. His face paled slightly, then flushed red when he noticed the 4 professionals standing with them. Is there a problem? He asked, voice suddenly higher than normal. Eleanor stepped forward, extending her hand. Eleanor Reeves, senior partner at Reeves and Morgan Law. We'd like to speak with Michael Bellini, please. Derek swallowed visibly. Mr. Bellini is very busy in his office. Perhaps I can help. I think Mr. Bellini would want to be interrupted for this, Judge Wilson rumbled. Unless you'd prefer we discuss the matter of public accommodation discrimination right here in the dining room. The restaurant had grown, quieter. Nearby diners were openly watching now, forks paused midway to mouths, conversations abandoned. Derek looked around nervously, then nodded. I'll get him right away. As Derek hurried toward the back of the restaurant, Diane discreetly took photos of the interior with her phone. Tom jotted notes on a small pad. Sophia tugged at her mother's hand. What's happening? She whispered. Justice, Maria whispered back. Or at least the beginning of it. A middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair emerged from the back, wiping his hands on a kitchen towel. He looked confused as Derek whispered urgently in his ear, gesturing toward the group waiting by the entrance. Michael Bellini approached them with a professional smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. I understand there may be some concern. Perhaps we could discuss this in my office. The genuine confusion in his voice caught Eleanor's attention. She glanced at Judge Wilson, who gave a nearly imperceptible nod. That would be acceptable, Eleanor agreed. As they followed Bellini toward his office, Sophia noticed something. The same customers who had stared at them with disapproval yesterday were watching them with interest and respect today. The difference wasn't in her dirty clothes. Those were the same. The difference was the company they kept, the authority they now carried. Sophia straightened her shoulders a little, no longer trying to make herself smaller. Her mother noticed and squeezed her hand encouragingly. Bellini's office was small but neat, with framed photographs of the restaurant's opening day and what appeared to be family pictures on the walls. There weren't enough chairs for everyone, so Judge Wilson and Tom remained standing while the others sat. Now, Bellini said, folding his hands on his desk, how can I help you? Michael Bellini looked from face to face, his confusion growing. I'm sorry, but I'm not sure I understand what this is about. Eleanor leaned forward slightly. Yesterday, this woman and her daughter were publicly humiliated and denied service at your restaurant. The reason given was their appearance, despite the fact that they had spent the morning volunteering at a community garden. Bellini's eyebrows shot up. He turned to Derek, who stood awkwardly by the door. Is this true? Derek shifted his weight from one foot to the other. Sir, I was simply upholding the new standards we discussed. You said you wanted to attract a more upscale clientele. I said I wanted to improve our food quality and service, Bellini corrected sharply. I never said anything about turning away customers based on their appearance. He turned back to the group. Please continue. Eleanor nodded to Tom, who pulled out his legal pad. At approximately 1:20 p.m. yesterday, Tom read, your assistant manager loudly and publicly announced that Ms. Gonzalez and her daughter were not welcome due to certain standards of cleanliness. He then suggested they go to McDonald's instead, adding that dirty children would disturb your other guests. Sophia looked down at her hands, the memory still fresh and painful. Maria put an arm around her daughter's shoulders. Bellini's face had grown increasingly red. Derek, wait outside. But sir, now. Derek left, closing the door behind him with a soft click. Bellini ran a hand through his hair. I had no idea this happened. I was at our supplier's warehouse all day yesterday. He looked directly at Maria and Sophia. I am deeply sorry for how you were treated. Apologies are a start, Judge Wilson said, his deep voice filling the small office. But they don't undo the damage of public humiliation, especially to a child. Diane nodded. Our firm is prepared to file a lawsuit for discriminatory practices, emotional distress, and violation of public accommodation laws. Bellini paled slightly. Lawsuit? Look, what happened was terrible, but surely we can resolve this without legal action. I've owned this restaurant for 15 years. My own parents were immigrants who faced discrimination. I would never condone what happened. Eleanor studied him carefully. Then how did you hire someone who would? Bellini sighed heavily. Derek is my wife's nephew. He lost his job at another restaurant and she asked me to give him a chance. He had all these ideas about rebranding and upscale clientele. I've been so busy with the kitchen and suppliers that I left the front of house to him. He shook his head. That was clearly a mistake. Sophia, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. Do you have kids? The unexpected question caused everyone to look at her. Bellini smiled slightly. Yes, a son and daughter, a little older than you. Would you want someone to make them feel bad about helping others? Sophia asked simply. The question hung in the air. Bellini's professional demeanor cracked, revealing genuine remorse. No, I wouldn't. He turned to Maria. Your daughter is very wise. Eleanor exchanged glances with her colleagues, then addressed Bellini directly. We're prepared to offer you an alternative to a lawsuit, which would likely result in significant financial damages and negative publicity for your restaurant. I'm listening, Bellini said cautiously. First, Eleanor began, immediate termination of Derek's employment. Bellini nodded without hesitation. Already decided. Second, implementation of a clear anti-discrimination policy for all staff, with professional training. Agreed. Third, Eleanor continued, a public apology to Ms. Gonzalez and her daughter, posted at the entrance and on your social media accounts. Bellini wrote this down. Absolutely fair. And finally, Eleanor said, looking at Sophia, we believe your restaurant could benefit from a community outreach program. Maria looked surprised. This hadn't been part of their discussion earlier. Eleanor smiled. The Pine Street Community Garden does important work feeding those in need. Perhaps Bellini's could form a partnership with them? Understanding dawned on Bellini's face. You mean like providing meals to volunteers or donating a percentage of profits? Both would be excellent ideas, Judge Wilson remarked. Bellini thought for a moment, then added, we could also host a monthly dinner for the families who rely on the food bank, free of charge, of course. Sophia's eyes widened. Really? Even if they're dirty from working? Especially then, Bellini said firmly. Honest work is never something to be ashamed of. Eleanor looked to Maria. Would these terms be acceptable to you? Maria considered, then nodded. Yes, if Mr. Bellini is sincere. I am, Bellini assured her. And I'd like to add one more thing. He reached into his desk and pulled out a business card. Ms. Gonzalez, I understand you work 2 jobs. We're currently looking for someone to manage our community outreach and special events. The pay is better than minimum wage with flexible hours and benefits. Would you be interested? Maria stared at the card in shock. Are you offering me a job? You clearly care about your community, and you've shown remarkable dignity through this situation, Bellini said. Those are qualities I value. Tom leaned over to Eleanor and whispered, Did you arrange this? She shook her head slightly, looking impressed. Before Maria could respond, Sophia tugged at her sleeve. Mama, does this mean you wouldn't have to work? Nights anymore you could tuck me in bed? The simple question brought tears to Maria's eyes. She looked at Bellini. I would need to think about it, but yes, I'm interested. Bellini stood, extending his hand. Then I believe we have an agreement. As they finalized the details, Derek poked his head into the office. Sir, there's a situation in the dining room. A reporter from the local news is asking questions about why there are lawyers here. Bellini looked alarmed, but Eleanor smiled. Perfect timing. Shall we announce our new community partnership and your new policy of welcoming all guests regardless of appearance? Diane added. Bellini hesitated only briefly before nodding. Yes, let's do that. They filed out of the office into the main dining room, where a young woman with a press badge was indeed waiting. Several diners had their phones out, clearly having recognized Judge Wilson and connected his presence to some kind of legal issue. Bellini addressed the room confidently. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to announce some exciting news. Bellini's is partnering with the Pine Street Community Garden to support their amazing work in our community. As Bellini continued his impromptu press conference, Sophia whispered to her mother, "Did we win?" Maria smiled. "Yes, sweetheart, but not in the way I expected." 3 months later, Bellini's had transformed. The white tablecloths remained, but the atmosphere had changed entirely. A large photo of community garden volunteers, Sophia prominently among them, hung near the entrance alongside the restaurant's new mission statement, "Good food for good people doing good work." Every Wednesday was Garden Day, when volunteers ate at half price. Once a month, the restaurant closed for a special dinner serving families from the food bank. The events were managed by Maria, who had traded her night janitor position for her new role at Bellini's. On this particular Wednesday, Sophia sat at a corner table doing her homework while waiting for her mother to finish work. Michael Bellini's daughter, Lily, sat across from her. The two had become unlikely friends after the incident, with Lily now volunteering at the garden alongside Sophia every weekend. Eleanor Reeves entered the restaurant, spotting Sophia immediately. She had become a regular customer, often bringing clients or colleagues to discuss cases over Bellini's excellent pasta. "How's my favorite gardener?" she asked, sitting down beside Sophia. Sophia grinned, holding up a school paper with a large A+ on top. "I wrote about standing up when things aren't fair." Eleanor glanced at the title. "How One Small Voice Can Make a Big Difference." "Perfect title," she said. "That's exactly what happened." Sophia nodded seriously. "And guess what? 2 more restaurants started garden days like ours. Mom says it's like dropping a pebble in water. The circles keep spreading." As Maria approached with drinks for the girls, Eleanor reflected on how a moment of cruelty had ultimately led to so much good. The lawsuit they had prepared but never filed sat in her office drawer, a reminder that justice could take many forms. Sometimes it looked like a small girl in dirt-stained clothes, standing tall when it mattered most.